Los Angeles is a city with an extremely high number of UFO sightings.
We're looking at the video right now.
Some believe that the largest mass UFO sighting in history took place here during the Second World War.
Fire! Fire!
When hundreds of U.S. soldiers fired on mysterious moving targets during what was called the Battle of Los Angeles.
This was well before anyone was talking about flying saucers, yet we have thousands of witnesses describing very strange occurrences that night.
Can eyewitness reports,
Something caught my eye. It was large, coming pretty much almost dead on.
declassified documents, and new evidence
There is, in fact, one thing that I hadn't noticed before.
shed new light on an incident that terrified the City of Angels? Unidentified flying objects have been seen in our skies for decades. Thousands of UFO sightings have been documented in official government files. Most have logical, scientific explanations. Yet some cases remain unexplained, classified, unidentified. Can newly released files reveal the truth behind these UFO encounters? February 25th, 1942. Something appears in the skies over Los Angeles. Only 3 months after Pearl Harbor, anti-aircraft batteries are scanning the skies for Japanese planes. 4-year-old Ray Bingham hears the air raid sirens.
I remember I was picked up by my father and we went outside. I remember the searchlights, definitely. And they were kind of not just random. They were searching a specific point in the sky.
Then the anti-aircraft guns started firing. Very, very disturbing. And there were people lined up from both sides of the street, all looking up.
17-year-old Bill Tompkins claims he saw something over the city that he cannot explain.
And there was a very large round vehicle at about 7,000 to 8,000 feet. It just moved in and just stopped right above us. There were other vehicles, smaller, that were coming and moving around him and moving above him.
Ray Bingham has no memory of seeing actual objects in the sky, only a sound and light show.
It was kind of an awesome sight. A little bit frightening, actually, because everyone was tense.
Tompkins witnessed something far more specific.
We could see clearly the shells blowing up on the bottom of this big vehicle, making no indication that there was any damage to it.
Tompkins was one of a few eyewitnesses who reported seeing this strange craft. If this sighting is accurate, it's America's first report of a flying saucer. But is there any truth to the account? What is known is that for about an hour, thousands of civilians watch as American soldiers fire anti-aircraft guns at unidentified targets in the sky. The night has become known as the Battle of Los Angeles. Today, Los Angeles, California is the city of dreams, home of the Hollywood blockbuster. Alien invasions are the stuff of classic 1950s sci-fi movies. Los Angeles is a UFO hotspot with dozens of sightings per year. Sightings range from lights in the sky to strange craft that outfly Air Force jets. And the very first might have been on February 25th, 1942.
Anti-aircraft guns went into action against unidentified aircraft in the Los Angeles area shortly after 3 a.m. Pacific wartime.
This actual report from CBS Radio, broadcast a few hours after the event, clearly shows that the people of Los Angeles believed something was over the city. What it actually was is still being disputed.
It never was clear what actually happened.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
Former FBI agent and UFO investigator Ben Hansen believes it may be the first and best documented sighting of a Los Angeles UFO.
The night of February 24th, 1942, leading into the early morning hours of the 25th, something incredible happened right here. We have thousands of witnesses describing very strange occurrences that night. This was well before anyone was talking about the terms UFOs, flying saucers, flying discs. This predates Roswell.
Others believe there is a much simpler explanation.
In my opinion, I really think it was mass hysteria that set off all that anti-aircraft fire. I think they were shooting at Jupiter that night. Just a target in the sky, and all hell broke loose.
Was it a false alarm? Or, as Bill Tompkins says, a flying saucer over LA? 7 decades later, declassified U.S. government and military documents shed new light on what really happened on the morning of February 25th, 1942. Based on a series of reports written at the time, the history of the 4th Anti-Aircraft Command is the only declassified account of the Battle of Los Angeles.
On February 23rd at about 7:30 p.m., Franklin Roosevelt was giving a pep talk to the citizens of the United States.
We must be set to face a long war against crafty and powerful bandits. The attack of Pearl...
Simultaneously, one of the Japanese submarines surfaced off the coast of Elwood, which is near Santa Barbara, California, and began lobbing shells at the oil fields there.
California oil wells near Santa Barbara are hit by shells from a Japanese submarine.
It's the first Japanese attack on mainland USA. Eyewitnesses report the submarine is headed south towards Los Angeles.
Pearl Harbor happened on December 7th, 1941. 10 weeks later on the West Coast, people were panicked. This attack cemented the fear of a possible Japanese invasion.
Tensions mount during the evening of February 24th. The 4th Anti-Aircraft Command puts the entire Pacific coast, from Monterey to the Mexican border, on yellow alert. A full-scale attack could be imminent. Over 250 anti-aircraft guns point to the skies. Inexperienced gunners nervously await a possible invasion. The declassified government document reports a sudden change just before 2 a.m. on the morning of February 25th.
The reports indicate that radar picked up a target 120 miles off the coast of Los Angeles. But right out here, the object comes due west, comes in east towards Malibu, and then starts to turn southward right over here, Santa Monica, towards Los Angeles.
At 2:21 a.m., as the object appears to approach the city, a blackout is ordered.
By 2:30, the gunners were told that they were on green alert status 1, which is fire at will.
At 2:43 a.m., an officer reports something in the sky south of downtown Los Angeles. Faced with the prospect of another Pearl Harbor, they take no chances.
One set of gunners thought they saw targets at about 18,000 feet.
What is that? Got him. Got him? You got him? Target acquired!
And they fired at will.
Fire! Fire!
Firing 76 millimeter shells into the air like crazy.
The sky was described in the LA Valley as erupting like a volcano.
It was total chaos. The anti-aircraft gunners were firing at perceived targets. They weren't verified targets.
We have 3-inch artillery shells, 50 calibers, mortars.
Shells were coming down into neighborhoods. A number of people were killed.
6 people are confirmed to have died, making the Battle of Los Angeles the deadliest UFO sighting on record.
The whole sky lit up, waking people out of bed thinking, what is going on?
The eyewitness reports are wildly inconsistent. Some claim they see entire squadrons of heavy bombers in formation. Some see bright lights. Others describe seeing a strange, whitish sphere, like a large balloon.
If you look west, as far as you can see is where Santa Monica is. From those hills is where the object first appeared, slowly meandering as far inland as Baldwin Hills, Culver City, where we're standing. At this point, the object turns and goes back towards the coastline over Long Beach and out towards the ocean.
At 4:13 a.m., the last sighting is reported. Soon after, the targets disappear without a trace. No bombs were dropped, no casualties sustained. The civilian deaths are not the result of bursting shells, but car crashes and heart attacks attributed to the dramatic events of the night. And after firing 1,400 high-explosive shells into the sky, the U.S. military doesn't bring down a single enemy target, leaving civilians and soldiers unsure of what they had just seen. Was it a false alarm, a failed Japanese air raid, or, as some claim, a mass eyewitness sighting of something that we now call a UFO?
No, I don't believe it was a UFO, but I did meet people that did believe that, yes.
Bill Tompkins is one of these people.
I never stopped thinking about that night. I knew that it was something extremely important, that something had definitely taken place. I felt that some enormous extraterrestrial vehicle had made a pass over Southern California.
February 25th, 1942. Anti-aircraft gunners have just fired over 1,400 shells at a mysterious object floating over the city. The object may have been LA's first UFO. Over the last 70 years, the City of Angels has been a hotbed of UFO sightings. Some of these sightings are from highly experienced military sources, including this one from 1954. Over the city of Los Angeles, 2 test pilots report seeing an object in the sky. They describe it as pencil-thin, stationary, floating horizontally, and appearing to be solid and metallic. This sighting is filed in Project Blue Book, an American Air Force UFO initiative that investigates over 12,000 UFO sightings between 1952 and 1969, when the project is terminated.
It was an effort by the Air Force to find out what these phenomena may have been and to capture these reports and analyze them and try to figure out if they were any kind of threat to national security. And they looked at 12,000 and change separate sighting incidents that they had reports on. And they developed a way to capture this data and ultimately came to the conclusion that most of these had explainable origins.
Project Blue Book classifies the great majority of the sightings as simply birds, clouds, airplanes, or stars.
Some of them still were listed as unexplained.
Out of the 12,000 cases, 701 remain unidentified. There is no known explanation. The Los Angeles 1954 sighting remains on the Air Force's records as unsolved and unidentified. 12 years earlier, well before Project Blue Book, or even the invention of the concept of UFOs, something unidentified appears in the sky over Los Angeles. It receives a massive military reaction from the jittery post-Pearl Harbor shore patrols.
Shells frequently could be seen bursting near the object, but none appeared to hit it.
The intensive barrage from over 250 anti-aircraft guns leads to no confirmed hits or downed targets. The most logical explanation is a Japanese airstrike. This declassified secret memo is key evidence to understanding what happened over Los Angeles that night. Dated February 26, 1942, the day after the event, it is sent to President Roosevelt from Army Chief of Staff George Marshall. Marshall believes unidentified planes, other than American, were fired upon. 15 airplanes may have been involved. But he's puzzled that no bombs were dropped, no casualties among our troops, and no planes shot down. It doesn't fit the profile of a Japanese attack and shows the confusion all the way up to the president's office.
Army officials declined to comment that the object might have been a blimp. However,
To this day, there is a dispute over what could have been over Los Angeles that morning. Japanese airplanes, nothing at all, or what some say was an extraterrestrial craft. News of the Battle of Los Angeles makes headlines across America, and the hunt for an explanation begins.
People were wondering what had happened because no one knew. No one seemed to have any definitive information.
Secretary of the Navy Frank Knox believes nothing was over Los Angeles. He calls it a false alarm due to war nerves, an overreaction by inexperienced American soldiers. But the Army disagrees.
The next morning, the Navy said there were no airplanes in the sky, but the Army said the alert was real. So there was a lot of finger pointing going on.
The Army did exactly what they were told to do. They were ordered to shoot a target during a green status. The alert was real. The green status was real. The firing was real. How that gets interpreted, you know, oh, there were planes flying over or there were balloons, that's where things get a little cloudy.
The after-action reports from the history of the 4th Anti-Aircraft Command give a clear indication that something was over LA. At 2:43 a.m., a gun officer reports unidentified planes between Seal Beach and Long Beach. At 3:28 a.m., Battery G of the 78th Coastal Artillery reports 25 to 30 heavy bombers over the Douglas plant. At 3:33 a.m., 15 planes are seen flying over Artesia. There are 37 reports from soldiers to an officer as high-ranking as a colonel, all claiming they saw targets in the sky.
Various witnesses are reporting not just one, but up to 20, maybe 200 different types of aircraft.
Yet there is no evidence that the Japanese had any ability to launch a full-scale air attack near the California coast. Within the history of the 4th Anti-Aircraft Command, Wing Commander Milton Durham states, "The tactical defense was turned over to the anti-aircraft as no fighters were sent up."
The Army Air Forces held their defense fighters on the ground until they had verifiable targets to attack.
There are no reports they ever took off. If the planes that were spotted were not American, one would expect them to be Japanese. But the Japanese submarine which attacked the oil fields the night before is reported to have withdrawn from the area with no further incident. Months later, the Japanese deny any involvement in the Battle of Los Angeles. It might seem to be simply a case of war jitters, except the radar picked up something. It's key evidence as to why the military ordered Green Alert Status 1.
The official record confirms without a doubt there were 3 different radar sets that tracked this object off the coast as it came in and down the coastline.
Official reports show a target first spotted at 1:44 a.m., 120 miles off the coast. For almost 45 minutes, 3 separate radar operators follow it until, at 3 miles off the coast, it disappears.
That means there was something in the sky. We followed it all the way into the coastline.
This is key evidence that has fueled the UFO believers for decades. If the radar did pick up some object, and it's proven without a doubt that no American or enemy planes were in the sky that night, then could the believers be right? Could the target that floated over Los Angeles have come from another world? What makes this story so extraordinary is that even here, confronted with what looks like solid evidence from radar, there is solid reason for doubt.
The official record records that Radio B officer says target doubtful. It wasn't a true reading.
Radar was in its infancy in 1942, easily thrown off by flocks of birds or storm clouds. The primitive SCR-268 radar units used in Los Angeles were nowhere near as sophisticated or as accurate as we have come to expect.
I really think the targets they saw that night were phantoms. They just weren't there. At the time, the radar was hard to interpret, and according to the history of the 4th Anti-Aircraft Command, the target mysteriously vanished about 3 miles off the coast. So I think it was most likely atmospheric interference.
Is it possible that the fears of a Japanese attack, combined with a suspicious radar report, were enough to spark panic? Besides the eyewitness accounts, there is photographic evidence taken during the battle. Printed in the LA Times, this is the most famous and widely recognized photo of the event.
The first time I saw the photo, I thought, okay, this might be actual proof of a UFO caught in the beams of these searchlights.
Ben is about to uncover a mystery that until now has never been made public.
Wow.
February 25th, 1942. As the panicked city watches, anti-aircraft light up the sky. Army radar tracks something strange overhead, seemingly unharmed by the gunfire. It might be the first UFO caught on radar, but it's not the last. Los Angeles is a city that continues to get a large number of strange UFO sightings. The U.S. Air Force's Project Blue Book investigated a 1956 sighting just south of the city in El Toro, California. Over an 8-hour period, the UFO is sighted by local residents and tracked by radar. 70 pages of Blue Book files exist, including over 30 photos of the anomaly caught on radar. Helicopters and jets are sent to intercept, but they can't find the unidentified object. The investigators conclude the radar blips are caused by some local phenomenon. The visual sightings are attributed to overactive imaginations. Did the same phenomenon happen in 1942? The Los Angeles event has one key piece of evidence that the El Toro sighting doesn't have. A photograph published in the LA Times, capturing the dramatic moment when the lights appear to converge on something in the sky. UFO investigator Ben Hansen is near the spot he thinks this photo was taken.
We really don't know much about where this photo was taken. It's the only photographic evidence of that night. But most people believe that it happened somewhere near the Baldwin Hills, which are behind me. We can see that it matches up pretty well. The profile of the hills, the outline, and it matches what witnesses said about the object coming this far inland before it turned back towards the coast.
But is there something under the spotlights?
The only way for us to know if there really is an object in this picture is for me to get a hold of the actual negative.
The only person who can help is the archivist of the LA Times collection at UCLA, Simon Elliott.
So here's box 3178 from the Los Angeles Times collection, and this should have the negatives in it that you're looking for.
More than 4 million historic photos from the LA Times are under Elliott's care.
And then here is the original negative.
This is completely underexposed. Look at this. I had no idea it was going to look so faint. The searchlight beams, they're there, but the ridgeline's completely gone.
There's very little else to see. And then this is the photograph as it appeared in the Los Angeles Times.
The original image has been heavily retouched. In an era before Photoshop, retouching required copying negatives, enlarging details, and even painting directly on the celluloid. Is this simply to make the photo look better in print? Was the retouching meant to insert an image of something that really wasn't there? And does the original negative contain details that are hidden in the published version? Then, before the analysis even begins, archivist Simon Elliott spots something he's never seen before.
There is, in fact, one thing that I hadn't noticed before, is that you have these notch codes in the edge of the negative. This one has a completely different notch code in it. So this was clearly taken with a different stock of film.
Out of 4 million photographs in the LA Times collection, this is the first negative the archivist has seen that's been shot on a different film stock.
It is rather a curiosity. It's not something I've seen in any other negatives in the collection. Times photographers all use the same film from the same manufacturer. that this one is so completely different suggests that maybe the negative was not taken by a Times photographer.
So, where did it come from?
Well, that's a mystery you're going to have to try and work out.
The famous photograph was possibly not taken by an LA Times photographer, and the source of the original negative is in doubt. If it didn't come from the LA Times, where did it come from?
The first thing I want to do is...
Ben sends high-res scans of the negatives to forensic photo analyst and former LA Times photographer, George Reese.
Okay.
The first thing I think to do is determine whether or not the two images are actually of one exposure or if it's two separate exposures.
George takes the two negatives and overlays them to make sure they are the same image.
It's good to see that they match up.
Yes, they do match up.
The forensic comparison suggests that the doctored photo is enhanced, but not faked. Yet, there are bigger issues.
Most people who study this photo, the biggest question they have is there an object in the center of the convergence of the spotlights? What do you say?
Well, if we zoom in on the image, and if we adjust the brightness and contrast of it, we definitely can see that there's more density in this one area of the image, which indicates that there may be something there, but we can't determine the size or the shape of it. It might be something in motion. It might be something translucent.
Rather than solving the issue, the forensics seem to have created more questions and more mysteries.
Another anomaly that a lot of people focus on is the fact that some of these beams seem to kind of go through, you know, like this one, but the other ones pretty much are stopped right at the convergence point.
This is the key part of the negative that experts have analyzed for years. Could there be something within the beams reflecting the lights?
We have the lines here that could be reflection. So it could be that they're hitting an object, some of these lights coming from the side and then hitting an object and reflecting outward. And they are brighter towards the center. And you could notice that they're brighter towards the center and fade out. And that could be indicative of them hitting an object as well. Yeah, there could be something there.
The beams do appear to be reflecting off something at the convergence point. Is it an illusion of the negative? Are the reflections from smoke in the air? Or are we seeing an actual object caught in the lights? There is still one more remaining mystery to solve.
At the archives, when I was looking at the negative, I noticed that every collection they had of these negatives had the same notch codes, except for this one. Can you tell us anything about the notch code that is in this photo and why it's different?
Yes, this image has a single notch. It's kind of a U-shaped notch up in the top right-hand corner. So this is the notch right here. So I have a sheet that shows the notch codes. So we have several different notch patterns, but the one that looks most significantly like this is the narrow notch of the Kodak fine-grained positive film. And this would be very indicative of this being a copy negative.
So what you're telling me is this negative is not even the original, that this is a copy.
That's correct.
That is incredible, because everyone's research has been based on this being the original negative. So where is it?
I don't know. It's a mystery to me.
The digital analysis leaves us with as many questions as answers. Are these light beams reflecting off something solid that's hidden behind the glare? It's impossible to say for sure, because the original negative is missing. Was it simply lost or misplaced? Or was it intentionally removed from the archive? And if so, who took it? Would the original negative supply any more information or prove conclusively that the object existed? And finally, if there is indeed an object behind the glare of light, how is it that it wasn't shot down? Some believe that an object was actually shot down, and they say they have proof. But if something was, what was it? October 1949. Another UFO sighting in the skies around Los Angeles. This time to the south, at Mount Palomar Observatory. Project Blue Book files state flying discs were seen near the observatory. One witness reports 16 flying in a V formation. Another sees a cigar-shaped object traveling at a high rate of speed. At the same time, Geiger counter readings at the observatory go off the scale. The sightings continue for 9 days. Then, they're gone. Although the witnesses are credible scientists, Project Blue Book concludes that it was equipment malfunction. The conflicting arguments over what was behind the UFO sightings at Mount Palomar is similar to the confusion 7 years earlier after the Battle of Los Angeles. The day after the Battle of LA, the Secretary of the Navy reported to the press that it was a false alarm, simply a case of war jitters. Military historian Stephen Nelson believes that many of the reports were right, that guns were firing at an actual object, and he thinks he's finally determined exactly what the target was.
This is the type of searchlight that would have been used around the time of the air raid. And in the famous photograph with all of the searchlights, you could see that the searchlights did converge. In some cases, it's been argued that they have over-illuminated the target.
Documents from the 4th Anti-Aircraft Command reveal what the searchlights might have been following, buried deep inside the report.
We believe that meteorological balloons were launched according to schedule.
The report reveals the launch of large weather balloons at 3 a.m. These balloons were sent up to determine weather and wind conditions. According to the reports, some balloons may have been released over Los Angeles during green status 1.
When the balloon goes aloft on green status, people take notice of it. The searchlight crews took notice of it, the gun crews took notice of it. The controller learned that there was a balloon aloft in green status number 1. He orders it destroyed.
In this theory, when the commanding officer realizes the sighting of the weather balloons is causing panic, he orders them destroyed, only to cause more panic as gunfire increases.
So the gun crews didn't simply just start firing, pell-mell. This was a direct order from the area controller to destroy the target, which was known and identified as a balloon at that time. But there are other interpretations, though, but that is my interpretation.
But this balloon theory, although plausible, does not account for the reported sightings of various aircraft by military personnel. And the theory doesn't account for the most startling phenomenon of the night, a report of an actual crashed aircraft.
The Navy stated they were receiving reports that they had downed aircraft at about 180th Street in Vermont. This was confirmed by the 77th Precinct of the LAPD.
There are numerous reports that night, both from men with a great deal of experience to people with almost no experience, and they claim to have seen aircraft being shot down.
It's a startling claim. The Los Angeles Police Department, the U.S. Navy, and the Daily Paper all report a crash in the middle of the city, but no evidence of a crash ever surfaces. Stephen Nelson believes there's a simple explanation.
When you have bursting shells in the sky, there are often embers and burning things that come down. Perhaps, they may have seen that sort of sputtering down from the sky.
As a professional UFO investigator, Ben Hansen suspects there's more to the story. He believes the reports from the police and Navy can't be so simply dismissed.
Now, it's one thing to say, yeah, we may have hit something, it may have come down. It's another thing to say, we have it on the ground. I think that we have enough witnesses and enough people definitively saying we downed some type of craft that maybe somebody came in and scooped it up.
The Japanese claim they had no aircraft over Los Angeles. The Army Air Force didn't order any fighters to intercept the unidentified target. If these official reports are true, what could have been shot down? If it wasn't an alien spacecraft, there's another intriguing possibility. What if it was an experimental American aircraft, so classified that its crash could not be acknowledged by the military? Aviation historian Peter Merlin is an aircraft accident expert. He's investigated more than 600 crash sites. Merlin and Ben Hansen explore a crash site from a top-secret aircraft that went down in 1953. Some of the remains are still visible.
They were coming from the south to the north, from over here. The plane exploded and spread debris for a quarter-mile.
You're seeing this much debris and wreckage. I mean, this is just strewn all over the place. Is there anything to identify the actual craft with?
Well, some pieces you'll find part numbers or inspection stamps.
The crash site from 1953 is near one of the most highly secured and top-secret facilities in the world, Edwards Air Force Base. Edwards sits just on the other side of the mountains from Los Angeles. In 1942, it was called Muroc.
Edwards has been at the forefront of testing virtually every aircraft that was developed for the Air Force inventory.
From California, the first pictures of the new flying wing.
From early innovations to supersonic and hypersonic to more modern-day stealth projects, many revolutionary top-secret technologies have been developed at Edwards.
There are a lot of projects which have taken place in the past that are still not declassified and remain a mystery to this day.
But what top-secret projects are being developed in 1942 at the time of the Battle of Los Angeles?
The XP-59 was tested at Muroc beginning in 1942 and was followed immediately by the XP-80. These aircraft were revolutionary, and they were highly secret at the time.
Even at Edwards, the line between top-secret experimental aircraft and UFOs gets blurred.
Some of the things flying at Edwards are so strange-looking that they would easily generate UFO reports.
Does this explain the strange object fired on by anti-aircraft gunners in 1942? A top-secret, experimental craft scrambled during the first reports of an attack. A craft that crashed and had to be covered up to protect its vital secret from the Japanese and the Nazis? It's an intriguing theory, but Merlin finds it unlikely.
I don't think there's any chance they would have flown the early jets over the Los Angeles area. It was such a secret project, they confined their activities to the desert ranges where the population was sparse.
Today, Edwards Air Force Base remains a hotbed of UFO reports, even from seasoned combat veterans.
I called the office and I said, Edwards, you're not going to believe what I'm about to say.
Dawn, February 26, 1942. After a night of anti-aircraft fire, citizens of Los Angeles wonder what kind of craft flew over their city. Could there be any connection to the nearby top-secret testing grounds called Muroc or Edwards Air Force Base? Since 1942, Edwards remains a UFO hotspot.
There are a lot of UFO stories surrounding Edwards. Some of them are elaborate to the point of being unbelievable, like UFO landings with visitors. Others are vague lights in the sky and objects being tracked on radar.
The U.S. Air Force's Project Blue Book began documenting UFO sightings connected to the airbase. 1947. According to Project Blue Book, an Edwards test pilot sees an oscillating sphere at 12,000 feet. Over the next 3 days, other people at the base also see it. 1951. 2 F-86 pilots attempt to intercept an unidentified flying object at 55,000 feet. The sighting is at first attributed to a weather balloon, but the pilots state the craft had wings and could move at incredible speed. After an investigation, Project Blue Book concluded, contrary to all eyewitness reports, it was a weather balloon. Bizarre sightings at Edwards Air Force Base continued up to the present day. In 1996, another eyewitness report enters into the realm of the unexplained.
I was solo that night.
Mike Larson is an Air Force security officer at Edwards.
And I just pulled over somebody on Mercury Boulevard for speeding.
All right, sir, have a good night. Slow it down, all right?
I gave him a warning, and I was just walking back to my vehicle. They were leaving, and that's when something caught my eye. It was a light off in the distance. What I saw coming pretty much almost dead on. It was triangular shaped, it was large, had a center light, just steady, not too bright. And then on each corner, it had greenish lights on each side. No blinking, no aviation lights. All the lights were steady on. And it moved very slow, and it was quiet. There was no engine noise, nothing to identify it as a standard aircraft.
Edwards, Police 4?
And so then I called the office and I said, Edwards.
You're not going to believe what I'm about to say. I'm seeing an unidentified flying object.
I asked them to confirm to the tower if we had anything flying tonight. The tower said that there's no flying and they don't see anything. And at that point, that's when I said, well, tell them to look to the southeast. And a few seconds later, then other posts around the base started calling in saying that they saw something as well. It came in this direction and slowly moved almost to the south base side and then over towards Boron. I have 10,000 flight hours. I've been around aircraft, you know, for 20 years. And to this day, I can't tell you what it is.
Did Officer Mike Larson see an experimental craft so secret even base personnel were unaware of? Or was it something even stranger?
I know what I saw. I just can't tell you what it is.
What Larson saw remains a mystery and adds to the Edwards UFO lore. The mystery remains as to what, if anything, was over LA in 1942. The official Army file states something crashed near downtown Los Angeles. What could it have been? Dr. Robert Wood believes he has definitive evidence. As an aeronautical engineer, he spent 40 years at Douglas Aircraft Company. He believes he has documents to prove that something extraordinary crashed in February 1942. And his mysterious evidence has fanned the flames of conspiracy theories ever since.
I first became interested in the Battle of LA when I got some documents that appeared to be classified.
5 photocopied documents marked top secret were delivered to Dr. Wood by what he claims was an anonymous military source. These mysterious documents appear to be from the 1940s, memos and letters to the president's office.
They excited me a great deal because it seemed as if the documents suggested strongly that we were being attacked by UFOs and that we were shooting at the UFOs and that we might have shot a couple of them down. Every way I looked at them, it seemed to me that they had all the earmarks of authenticity.
One of the 4 documents is already confirmed and well known among historians. The memo from George Marshall to President Roosevelt, written the day after the Battle of Los Angeles. But it's the other 4 documents that are in question.
When I found out that it looked as if we really had recovered the craft, I got very excited. This is a memo 1 week later from FDR to George Marshall saying that we have actually recovered 2 craft. One was recovered in the San Bernardino Mountains and the other was salvaged by the Navy at sea. This headquarters has come to a determination that the mystery airplanes are in fact not earthly, and according to secret intelligence sources, they are in all probability of interplanetary origin. So those are the words right in this document in March, 1 week later, 1942.
Dr. Wood's documents seem incredible, yet there is no other verification or support for these claims, and no other copies besides the mysterious documents that Wood claims he received anonymously. Even UFO investigator Ben Hansen questions the authenticity of Dr. Wood's documents.
One of the most crucial things in doing forensics on documents is having the original document. That's my biggest problem with the ones that Dr. Wood presented. We can't test the paper, we can't test the ink, we can't look for the special qualities that would have been present in that time period.
The mysterious documents are the only official connection of the Battle of Los Angeles with the idea of alien or extraterrestrial spacecraft. Without any reliable source, these documents remain shaky evidence at best. All that remains are the official files reporting mysterious craft over Los Angeles, soldiers firing upon unknown targets, and eyewitness accounts. Bill Tompkins was one of a few who report a bizarre, disc-like craft, unlike anything they'd seen on Earth.
It's a situation where a massive extraterrestrial military organization came in over our planet at 2 months after we went to war with Japan.
Others remain skeptical.
I believe there are other advanced civilizations out there, but based on the reports, there's no documentary evidence that they came and visited on February 25th, 1942.
I've always found material at every crash site I've been to, but it's certainly nothing extraterrestrial. I've certainly never seen any evidence myself of extraterrestrial visitation, and I'd love to, but it just doesn't seem to be there.
Stephen Nelson prefers a different approach to commemorate the event. Every February, the actual site of the air raid guns hosts a celebration of the Battle of Los Angeles, with reenactors, 1940s music, and World War II veterans.
I don't want to destroy people's theories and their ideas. I just think that there has been precious little focus on the men that served that night and the circumstances behind it. Rather than look at it as an embarrassment, we should look at it as a lesson. And the men that served that night actually went on to do great things in World War II. And that is the story of the air raid, I think much more important than speculation on a UFO or something of that nature.
Ben Hansen believes that despite decades of investigation, the event remains a mystery.
We have hundreds, if not thousands, of witnesses who saw some type of strange object over Los Angeles. As to what it was, we may never know.
On the one hand, we want to determine with a final exact what happened that evening, but I think with the passage of time and the loss of the eyewitnesses, I think it's forever going to be open for speculation.
The official files clearly show the confusion of the night. Government reports mention both planes and balloons in the skies, yet there is no conclusive evidence of either. Eyewitnesses claim bizarre sightings, with no evidence to back them up. Even the famous photograph turns out to be inconclusive, since the original has disappeared. And the alleged leaked documents of Dr. Wood refer directly to interplanetary aircraft, but their authenticity is seriously questioned. The events of February 25th, 1942 remain a mystery, leaving the case study of the Battle of Los Angeles unidentified.